Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Fahim, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Lightning Strike. Another beautiful day in the United States of America. But I wanted to talk today about a couple of things that you keep on hearing. Our leaders, our so-called leaders, use euphemisms, okay? Boots on the ground. Heard that term recently? Boots on the ground. And the bill is on the American people. This is the Lightning Strike. So Washington has a phrase, folks, that it likes to use when it wants to make war sound less dangerous. Boots on the ground. It sounds technical, right? Strategic, almost abstract. But let us be clear about what that phrase actually means. Those boots have bodies attached to them. Those bodies belonged to American soldiers. And those soldiers have families waiting for them to come home. When the government says boots on the ground, it is announcing that American men and women are about to be sent into battle. And the question we must ask is very simple, folks. Why? Because this war with Iran is already draining America's treasury and destabilizing the global economy. I'd spoken a couple of weeks back about the cost of this war and what we could have done with the money locally at home over here. So military operations on this scale now can cost close to $1 billion per day, right? Once aircraft carriers, missile defense systems, logistics, and air operations are fully engaged, if the conflict continues for months, the price tag could easily climb into tens of billions of dollars, potentially approaching or exceeding $100 billion. So when the broader economic disruption is included, that is American money, money borrowed against the future of us, the American people. And let no one tell you otherwise. This money could rebuild bridges, modernize schools, strengthen the healthcare system, and invest in the infrastructure of this country. Instead, it's being burned in a conflict that is also reshaping the global balance of power. So while Washington escalates militarily, Russia is positioning itself as a diplomatic broker in the region. Who could have thought about that, huh? Not the geniuses in the White House. So China continues expanding its economic and energy partnerships across the Middle East. In other words, while America spends its treasure and risks its soldiers, others are quietly expanding their influence. And then there is another question that deserves to be asked openly, okay? If this war continues, is it fundamentally about the security of Israel? Why are American soldiers being asked to carry the burden on the ground? Why are we hearing about American boots on the ground while Israel, with one of the most technologically advanced militaries in the world, is not committing large ground forces into this conflict? These are not anti-alliance questions, and nobody dare question me and accuse me of being anti-Semitic. These are questions of national responsibility, folks. American foreign policy must always begin with one principle. American lives must never be treated as expendable instruments of someone else's strategic objectives. Our alliances matter, but alliances cannot mean that the United States automatically supplies the money, the missiles, and now the manpower. If American troops are being sent into harm's way, the American people deserve a clear explanation of the national interest at stake. Not slogans, not emotional appeals, strategy. And strategy means asking, how will we end this before it becomes another endless war? The path forward is not escalation, folks. I like to point out problems, issues, but I also like to give some suggested solutions that maybe those people at the White House and are not thinking about it. First, the United States must define limited objectives and stop mission creep before this turns into another multi-year occupation like we had in other so-called wars, right? Second, Washington must open an immediate diplomatic channel involving regional powers such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, and the European Union, creating a framework for de-escalation. Third, the United States should re-establish structured negotiations around nuclear monitoring and regional security guarantees, restoring the type of diplomatic architecture that once reduced tensions. And finally, Congress must reassert its constitutional role before the nation drifts deeper into a war that the American people never fully debated. Because the real cost of the war is never measured only in dollars, folks. It is measured in lives. And every time Washington talks about boots on the ground, we must remember the truth beyond those words, right? Those boots belong to somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's future. And the decision to send them into battle should never be made lightly. This is the Lightning Strike. We'll take a quick break and come back on the other side of the break with our person of the week. We are also going to be joined by two congressional candidates in the first hour today. And in the second hour, we have Nick Unijewski, who will be joining us. And also Judge John Pavich will be joining us in the second hour. But let's take a quick break and come back on the other side of the break. You're listening to The Lightning Strike. I'm your host, Mohammed Fahim. Okay, so while you're waiting...
Calling all residential and commercial property owners. If you're like me, you're sick and tired of paying high electric bills, which, by the way, are on the rise. You're also probably unaware of the federal, state, and utility incentives that you qualify for. Take out a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. Again, 630-785-0031. Give Greenlight a call for a no-cost, no-obligation energy assessment, and we'll show you which federal, state, and utility incentives you qualify for. Again, 630-785-0031. Give us a call, 630-785-0031.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Lightning Strike, and let me introduce our team today. We got Sue Patino. You're not going to live that one down. Okay.
What name, Sue?
We also got Dr. Sheila White, Read Bible, and Chris Hilbert joining us. And let me turn it over to Dr. Sheila White to introduce our person of the week. And we are waiting for also Richard Dawkins to be joining us. Okay, Sheila, it's all yours.
Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, world and the team. I'm excited this morning because our person of the week that we're focusing on in the Chicago area is Joyce Dawkins, and she's the founder of I Am She Expo that takes place on Saturday, May 16, 2026 from 2 to 7 p.m. at the Ovation Center in Romeoville, Illinois. I Am She is more than just an event, guys. It's a celebration of identity, purpose, and community. It's a day to honor women of who she is becoming, and the legacy that she is building. They're celebrating 10 years of impact, and I'd like to welcome Miss Joyce Dawkins to WCPT this morning. Good morning, Joyce. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Joyce, this event that's coming up in May is so exciting. I know it's going to be over 1,200 people there. You've been doing this for over a decade. Tell us why you got into doing this and celebrating women.
Absolutely. So it is an organization that I created that was purposely designed to honor and empower women. And so I wanted to create a space and an atmosphere where women can come together and celebrate one another, support one another, uplift, encourage, and motivate each other. So I created this organization where we would go and have different events, and the events would, again, bring women together, honor them. We've done over the past 10 years, we've actually had a college fair where I partnered with over 30 schools in the state of Illinois to come together and showcase their programs that they have for adults, right? So their continuing education. We've gone and done walks with homeless shelters. We've partnered with Rasmussen College to host workshops to talk about re-entering the workforce, networking. And so I wanted to, again, just really create something that we could identify with, that we can celebrate, and just honor and empower women.
You know, the great thing about this is taking place in the suburbs. Most of the things takes place in the grand city of Chicago, the Windy City.
Yes.
But this is awesome because it's going to be taking place in the south suburbs. And I want to talk a little bit because you're the founder of She Rocks magazine. So not only are you having this big expo in the suburban area, but you also have a magazine. So tell us a little bit about the magazine.
Yeah. So the magazine, She Rocks It magazine, was birthed during the pandemic. It was birthed as a way for me to stay connected with my network because we were not able to come together for events. So what I thought was going to be like a small magazine I created has reached over 80,000 globally because I created it as a digital platform. And so I use this magazine to do the same thing with the organization. It acknowledges, it honors women. Women share their stories. Women advertise their businesses. And so coming up on 10 years of She Rocks It, we're releasing our next edition May, which will be available in print at the expo. So very exciting digital platform.
Now, what I'm really excited about is to talk to everyone about the Cling Fest, and which is with wine, spirits, and things along that line. You have major sponsors that's a part of that. Tell us a little bit, what is the Cling Fest and some of the sponsors and some of the organizations that are involved, the people that are doing this?
Absolutely. So the Clink and Sip Wine and Spirit Festival, it is empowered by our nonprofit, the Sip and Empower Foundation. And so the festival really brings together the BIPOC industry, the Black, Indigenous people of color in the wine and spirit industry. So we create a space for them where we can introduce the world to the different brands owned by minorities. So we bring in individuals from all across the country. Last year, we had individuals coming from Mexico, Asia, to showcase their wine and spirit. So it was a way to educate them because it's not just the Wine and Spirit Festival. We do an education component where we talk about distribution, we talk about sales, we talk about marketing, and then we introduce them to companies that could potentially help them get into the big box stores. So our major sponsor is Mariano's. We've been sponsored in the past by United Airlines. Last year, Bally's Casino picked us up for sponsorship. And some of the makers, the blessing with this festival, have actually been picked up, and now their products are in Mariano stores. And so this festival is September 20th. We're going to have it in the Chicagoland area in Fulton Market at Morgan Manufacturing. So that brings together over 1,200 people from across the country. You have your ticket and you're able to sample like an ounce of these wines and spirits. And then we have an in-house retailer. So if they are licensed, you can actually purchase the products to support these entrepreneurs in that industry. So it is an amazing festival. And again, for me, it's an opportunity to give back and pour into others.
You know, it's interesting because I didn't know there were so many minority wine and spirit companies out there from all over the world. You just
Yes,
go into the store and you see certain brands, but you don't know who's behind that. So I think the Clink Fest
absolutely.
that'll be taking place in September the 20th in Chicago is something for people to be able to check out. Those of you that are connoisseurs of wines, I don't know if Mohammed is or Reed is. I'm sure that Sue is, but at the same time, I know that it will be something that people can enjoy. And I want to let you know that the I Am She Expo is not just happening on May 16th, but you can come out and support it. It's something for the whole family. It's support entrepreneurs. It's an experience for the power of she for the women that are out there.
Yes,
So we'd like to invite you all to come out and enjoy this. That's taking place on May 16th this year at the Ovation Center in Romeoville, Illinois. So
yes.
thank you so much for being our special guest on today. How can they get a hold of you, by the way?
Absolutely. So if you go to sherocksit.com, our
Mhm.
website, there's a contact us page, and there's also a page for if you do our upcoming events where you can get information on the I Am She Expo. And then for Clink, which is CLINK, if you Google Clink Festival, that will come up and you can get information and ticket information on the Wine and Spirit Festival.
Well, thank you so much, Joyce, for joining us. And
Thank you
Sheila,
for having me.
as usual, you bring in some great guests. And is Sue Patino invited for that festival now?
The Clink Fest.
Absolutely.
I'm not
The
going to
entire
let you
team.
go. I'm not let you go, Mike. You asked for it, my friend. So, folks, you are tuned in to the Lightning Strike. I'm your host, Mohammed Fahim, with my team of Dr. Sheila White, Mike Patino. Today, it's Sue Patino and Read Bible and Chris Hilbert. If you want to join the conversation, the number to call in is 773-763-9278 or 773-763 WCPT. And this segment of our call-in is sponsored by Ray Hanania of Hanania.com. We'll be joined shortly by Richard Boykin, who is running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District. But Reed, let us continue the conversation. What's on your mind today?
Well, I'd rather talk about drinking wine and celebrating women.
Hey.
Absolutely.
Remember, you are talking to a Muslim guy who does not drink and who is fasting in Ramadan.
Well, it's those of us who are wine drinkers and those who just can't be, and that's how.
But see what it does. See what it does to your hair, though.
Well, there might be a connection there because I did start
Hey.
at a fairly young age. But what do you have to say, Sue, about that?
Okay, so Reed, what is keeping you awake this week, my friend? I mean, apart from the boots on the ground that I pointed out.
Well, I've been wanting to get around to this for a while. This involvement with Israel and fighting its war for us. I don't know if a lot of Americans realize it, but Israel has been creating, ever since it was created in 1948, it's been not that great a friend of ours. We supposedly have this, quote, special relationship between the United States and Israel. But folks, Israel's been spying on us ever since 1948. And they've gotten into technological secrets from our corporations. It's gotten into government classified documents, and it's been doing it for years and years and years. In fact, according to our intelligence community, it's been saying that Israel's motivations have been threefold. One is that it's strengthening its own industrial base by doing this. Two, it's selling and trading our information to and with other countries, especially China, for profit. And the third is that they've been selling and trading our technical developments and classified information to and with other countries to develop political ties and alternative sources of arms and intelligence. They've been doing this for years, folks. And there have been some that you might have heard recently. There was a man by the name of Robert Maxwell, who was a super spy for Mossad. And he is the father of Ghislaine Maxwell of Epstein fame. This man there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that he provided Israel and Mossad with a lot of our nuclear information that help Israel develop its own nuclear weaponry. Israel is the only country in that part of the world that has a nuclear stockpile and weapons system. So, and according to our National Counterintelligence Center, Israel has been active against U.S. interests and has exploited our economic ones to advance its own nuclear weapons for quite some time. And they receive a lot of political protection from Congress, and for reasons that I think are fairly obvious now when we've talked about AIPAC. It also exploits the sympathy of American ethnic groups, such as the Jews that live here in America of dual loyalty, like the billionaires of Miriam Adelson and her late husband. But I want you to keep in mind that not all American Jews have this conflict. Most Americans are loyal American, most Jews, rather, I should say, are loyal Americans, but we do have some rather high profile American Jews who seem to be torn between their loyalties between the United States and America. And I want to give you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about, hard examples of it. We had an American-born man named Jonathan Pollard who became a spy for Israel in the 1980s while he was working as an intelligence analyst for the U.S. Navy. He was apprehended in 1985 and unsuccessfully applied for asylum with Israel, but he was also convicted for violating the Espionage Act. Then he was sentenced to imprisonment in 1987. What did he do? Well, he sold 10 volumes of the National Security Agency manual on how the U.S. gathers its signal intelligence, and he also disclosed thousands of names of people who had cooperated with our U.S. intelligence agencies. Israel formally apologized for that betrayal in 1987, but they never admitted to payment to Pollard until 1998. And after they granted him Israeli citizenship in 1995, when Pollard was released in 2015, he was granted, by the way, parole in 2015, rather, that expired in the year 2020. And he was then allowed by Israel to relocate to Israel, where he could advocate for the relocation of Palestinians from Gaza to Ireland. And he was given a hero's witness, or I should say, welcome. And at that time, Miriam Adelson and Sheldon Adelson, they provided him a private jet to fly him back to Israel, and where he's welcomed as a big hero. And just to show you the kind of power that the Adelsons had, they gave Trump a lot of money in his one of his presidential campaigns, enough that convinced Trump to move our embassy from Tel Aviv controversially over to Jerusalem. That had been something we had never done before, but they were able to buy foreign policy by giving Trump all this money, and he paid them back for that great favor by moving our embassy. So when Pollard did this, he said he did it out of a sense of, quote, racial obligation to help Israel. And he said that the United States was withholding vital security information from Israel. But bear in mind that he was paid tens of thousands of dollars for this information that he sold to Israel. And then we had U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee, who recently received Pollard as a guest last year. Now, I could go on about another fellow by the name of Richard Smith.
Goodness me.
But this is just a prime example of the kind of stuff that Israel's been doing to our country, even though we give them billions of dollars a year for their protection and their development.
Yep, and we need to ask those questions. And we got two congressional candidates joining us today, and our scheduling kind of got a little bit messed up, guys. We scheduled both of them at 8:30 instead of one at 8:15 and the other one at 8:30. Okay. Hey, things happen, man. Morgan, we are really scratching our heads now as to what the heck is happening in our country. We also have Richard Boykin joining us. Richard, if you could please unmute yourself so that we can hear your baritone voice.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you all for having me. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll go with Richard first, and then we'll bring you in, Morgan. Then I know that you're working your tail off trying to get Brad Snyder off in the 10th Congressional District. Yep. So, Richard, good morning. Welcome, and it's good to see you again. We need to stop meeting like this, my friend. People will start talking.
Well, let them talk. I mean, we're trying to solve the problems of the world.
I know. Folks, Richard and I met at Dr. Willie Wilkins' office last week on Wednesday to talk about how we can give back to our fellow citizens. And Richard is helping Dr. Willie with a wonderful program coming up shortly to where in the first four Saturdays, in the 4 Saturdays in April, he will be managing this thing to give gas cards and grocery cards to deserving citizens in the Chicagoland area. Richard, thank you so much for taking the lead on that.
Well, thank you very much. And I think it's needed given what's happening in Iran and across the world. Obviously, gas prices are rising, grocery prices are rising as well, and everything else. And so people are finding it more difficult to make it. And Dr. Wilson is, as you articulated, is actually going into his pocket. He will spend over $500,000 helping our fellow citizens get to work, get to child care, get to wherever they need to go, and to help them put groceries on the table.
Well, and it takes a team to do that, Richard. And I know that you are leading that effort on behalf of of the doctor. So, what is happening in the seventh district now? I heard APAC is bringing in boatloads of money. I don't know, man. Why are we allowing these PACs and super PACs? And Murray Newman, our co-host in the second hour, is going to be talking about PACs and all of those things also. So why are we allowing people to buy our votes, for lack of a better word?
What's Citizens United? It's the Supreme Court. It's Congress. Congress's inability to actually pass substantive campaign finance reform and making sure that we get dark money out of politics once and for all. And we have to do it. I mean, at the end of the day, people deserve transparency. People deserve a reliable government, one that functions on behalf of the people and not on behalf of special interests and lobbyists and all these other dark forces that are seeking to influence our elections. Here in the seventh district, I think they're spending over $5 million on one of my opponents in terms of trying to boost her. And that is unacceptable. I mean, those people don't live here. They live outside of the seventh. The people in the seventh district need to make the decision, and I'm urging them to do that. Look, at the end of the day, we must study war no more. I heard you all talking about Israel earlier, but we're spending $1 billion a day, and Americans treasure taxpayer money, and we're losing soldiers as well in a war that we did not ask for. We weren't attacked. It was a war of choice, and the choice was made by Donald Trump to actually go in alongside Israel. I don't like it one bit. It's a bad idea. $1 billion a day. The initial startup costs for the war were about 5.6 billion. Now we said we don't have money for Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP, but we have money to make war. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, we don't even have money to pay our TSA people. Okay, so they
That's
are
right.
working
That's right.
for free.
That's right.
And my rant today was on the term boots on the ground. I mean, they make it sound so innocuous, or boots on the ground. Those boots are bodies attached to them, Richard.
And those boots will be people from the middle class, people from poor communities who will be killed in this war. And it's unfortunate because Donald Trump and his friends aren't going to fight the war. His friends are benefiting from the war. War makes a lot of money for people who manufacture missiles, tomahawks, and the munitions to kill people. And so we should be trying to find ways to peace, not being an aggressor and trying to go in and
Yeah,
take
China
out people's
and Russia
oil
are
reserves.
going in and filling in that void, that vacuum that has been created by, this idiot of a president that we have. I'm so sorry, but my blood boils when I think about what else we could do with the money. And that is money that we are borrowing. It is not money that we have. And I want to bring that conversation back with Morgan also on this. So Morgan, let me bring you in. Let me bring you in on this. If you could, chime in, and so we can have 2 for 1. Hopefully, both of you will get into Congress. And folks, got
That would be ideal.
Morgan Coghill that I'm adding into the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, future congressmen to future congressmen. Okay. Both
There
of
we go.
you are more than welcome to chime in any time. Morgan, what are the major things that you are facing in the 10th district? I know that Brad Snyder is the richest congressman in Illinois at this point.
Yep, he is.
The guy is a multi-millionaire. He says that, oh no, that is my wife's money. Please don't give me that. Okay.
Well, hey, he married well, I guess. Good for him. But the reason, he has a lot of money, a lot of it from APAC, a lot of it from bad people. You take money from United Healthcare, Abbott, all of these big pharma and insurance companies. You're never going to be for Medicare for all. When you take donations from Northrop and Raytheon, hey, war in the Middle East is a good thing, better for your bottom line. Brad, I'm going to say this so that nobody misconstrues this. Brad is a sellout. He is not a Democrat. He is MAGA light. He swings left just for appearance's sake. And the more we've dug into his record, the more we realize that this is the case. He takes money from the same people who fund the congressman who refused to certify the election. He's taken over $6 million from these groups. So I don't want to hear his ideas about affordability or healthcare because they're all platitudes and nonsense. We even came up with a bingo card. It's like, Brad's platitudes, stuff that doesn't mean anything.
Well, Morgan, it is very challenging and to go after a sitting congressman because these guys are so entrenched in their positions. I know the kind of challenge that I faced when I challenged Raja Krishnamurthy in 2019. Okay. Yeah, these guys are bought, basically, for lack of a better word. They're bought, they have sold their soul. And that is what is happening with Sean Casten in the 6th district also. And then, Richard, one of the things that I noticed this morning, even on WCPT, they were running negative advertising against one of the candidates. If you don't have anything good to say about yourself and who you are and what your ideas are, don't talk to me about how bad the other person is. And, negative advertising turns me off.
Yeah, it turns me off as well. I think you ought to talk about what you're for. You ought to talk about ways in which you can lower housing, healthcare, childcare, groceries, gasoline costs for people. Talk about ways in which you can create more jobs and ways in which you can make sure that every neighborhood is safe. And so those are the kinds of issues that we're talking about. We're not focused on the other candidates. We're just trying to get to as many doors as we can and communicate with as many people as we can. And that's why I appreciate WCPT and I appreciate you in the Lightning Strike for giving us this opportunity to reach voters. And I encourage people, if you have not voted, please go out and vote. People died for us to have the right to vote. It's such an important value in our democracy to make sure that we have a strong democracy of people participating. Voting is the language of democracy.
And you're so right. So pointing out the deficiency of a person is different from negative advertising. So if someone, like Morgan was saying about Brad Snyder, the interests that he's representing are not the interests of the constituents of the district.
Correct.
And I've seen that, numerous times with these elected representatives. That's why we started this whole show, folks. Most of you don't know the background. Dr. Sheila White has been with us from day one, and she knows we wanted to hold our elected representatives accountable for their actions or inactions. Okay, we are paying your salary when you get elected, right? So we want you to work for us. And if you work for us, we will celebrate you. But if you work for the special interest and the people who are passing those big checks to you, yeah, you're going to be held accountable.
And if I can chime in here, that's the
Please.
whole point. I've as I've been running, I've realized just how deep the corruption and the rot really goes. And by raising money grassroots, you realize it's actually a lot more freeing. You can say what you want to say. One of the things I've stated plainly is that my congressional schedule is going to be completely transparent. It's going to be on the front page of my congressional website, so that if I'm meeting with someone, my constituents have a right to know who that is. No, smoke-filled back rooms, no side deals over dinners at some Georgetown steakhouse. People have a right to know who their representatives are meeting with and why they're accepting donations from the people they're accepting them from. For instance, why did Exxon increase their donations to my opponent by 5x in November? Why did they do that? They'd never done that before. It's not because he's such a nice guy. I mean, come on. There's something, they wanted something in return. The question is, what is that?
And one of the things that I have noticed about Brad is he likes to take credit for other people's work. Okay. And I'll give you an example. When I was working with Illinois WorkNet as the Director of Business Employer Solutions and Corporate Relations at the Unemployment Office in Arlington Heights, I brought together a program for youth called the Manufacturing Internship Program, okay? Manufacturing Careers Internship Program. And part of that was getting these young people into manufacturing jobs. And I took the same model and I created a program for returning veterans. Okay. So it was a 2-week program. We had about 17 veterans in there. 14 of them ended up getting productive employment in manufacturing. And Crane Chicago Business sent a reporter to my office because I had a 1-week in-office training. I'm training them how to translate their MOS into civilian speak. And then the next week, we took them visiting with local manufacturers. So they sent this reporter out to do a report, and it is there on their website even now, okay? And some reason, Brad Schneider was interviewed as part of that program, and he took credit for that. Okay. And it is on video, my friend, so I'm not making it up. And that kind of threw me for a loop as to why did the reporter go to Brad Schneider, who was in the 10th district. Most of the program that I brought in was in the 8th district. Okay. And but that is how I guess these people do things. And Richard, I know that in the 7th district, you have multiple people running.
That's right.
And historically, it has been more of an African American district than other communities that we have. Who was the retiring congressman over there?
Congressman Danny Davis.
Congressman Danny Davis. And he was there forever, right?
30 years.
30 years. Just imagine that. And now AIPAC is trying to come in and buy that seat. Okay, no doubt they're trying to support an African American candidate, but we all know who would be pulling the strings if that person gets elected.
That's right. Look, at the end of the day, it's more than just AIPAC. There are other.
I mean, I'm using AIPAC almost like we used to have photocopiers, and then it becomes Xerox. Anytime you want something, you Xerox something. Okay, so more of a general term. Okay, so we got Chris joining us all the way from Texas, part of our team. Reed Bible is joining us from Henderson, Nevada, as part of our team. The folks that we have over here, they represent different ideas and different constituencies also. And by the way, the program is heard live worldwide. So you guys are really reaching out to hundreds and thousands of people over here. Let me start off with Chris. Chris, you got any questions for our candidates?
No, I'm just really impressed and excited to be part of a true progressive movement. Living in Texas, it's kind of hard to find the real progressives. They weenie down, as I call it.
Okay.
They've fallen for the manipulative lie that Texas is a conservative state. Even
Well,
the
hopefully,
Democrats.
hopefully
So
Talarico would change that. Okay.
I hope we'll see. But
Okay.
I like what they have to say. I like the people first aspect of the candidates that you all are having in Illinois right now, and I hope they all win. I'm doing my part to share the news that they're running and they're progressive, and we need them in Congress.
Well, let's bring Sue Patino in. I'm sorry, Mike. Today you are Sue, man.
That's
You guys
okay. I
don't know
can
the
live with that.
backstory to this, Morgan and Richard, but for today, Mike Patino is Sue Patino. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely no problem with that.
Okay.
And you can call me Sue any day.
Okay, that's what you said in the beginning, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Morgan is doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you, Mike.
He's got an excellent team behind him. He's everywhere. I'm just concerned. I've been out there. I'm babysitting 4 polling sites around my area in the Panhandle of Cook County, and I don't get up to his district, unfortunately enough. But we really need people to get out and vote, because if we get out and vote, we can get guys like Richard and Morgan in Congress where we need them. And how you doing out there, Morgan? How you feeling?
Hey, this is the fun part. Yesterday we turned out a whole lot of people in Grays Lake at the St. Patrick's Day Parade. It was rather funny. Our erstwhile political party, they had a car with 3 people, and we had 30 for Coghill for Congress. So
Beautiful.
it was great. We're going to be hitting more polling stations. We're out still knocking some doors, trying to get people to the polls, because this is about turnout. And turnout in Lake County so far is already through the roof. And it's always good, and I'm sure Richard would agree, to be the candidate for whom high turnout helps. And that's the case. That's my case. The higher the turnout, the better it is for me. So we're really out pushing these last 48 hours to get as many people to the polls. I talked to 5 people on Friday in Deerfield at the Deerfield pool. All 5 of them said, "Hey, we are voting in the primary because you are running. That's it." And I shook their hand and thanked them for their vote. So, and there are a lot of people out there like that. So we're
one of the things that I want our listeners to understand, folks, is this: the primaries are where the decisions are being made. So go out, elect the right candidate, because come November, it'll be too late if you don't select or elect the right person in the primaries. I'm listening to a lot of people saying, "Hey, you know what? We will just go and elect a Republican in November if we don't like the candidate that that made it through the primaries in the Democratic side." Please don't do that.
no.
Okay. At the end of the day, we are Democrats, so let us remember that no matter who wins the primary, but make sure that the right candidate wins the primary. Get to know them, get to learn. We still have a couple of days now, folks. And today's program is very important. This is the last show of the lightning strike before the primary elections on Tuesday. And we wanted to get the word out as much as possible. And, come Wednesday, it'll be too late. If you don't get off your keister and drag yourself to the polls. Reed, you got any questions for our candidates?
Yes, actually, I have a different question for each of you, and I'll start off with Mr. Coghill. You pointed out that Brad Schneider is taking APAC money, and I think that this is illustrative of the fact that there's an inherent contradiction or conflict of interest, I think, when he also serves on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And so I would want to know if you would ever take PAC money from foreign influence PACs when you get to Congress, even if it was for a cause that you believed in.
Absolutely not. And our whole candidacy has been built on grassroots fundraising, because I don't want to be beholden to those sorts of interests. It makes it a lot easier to just say no. I'm not accepting that. We've been approached by several PACs, in the healthcare sphere, to basically say, hey, can you knock off this Medicare for all stuff, and we'll help you out. And we said no, because I don't want to have that undue influence. I want to be able to say and do what I think is going to be needed for our constituents here on the 10th. So, not only is the APAC influence bad for the foreign relations portion, but also on things like Ways and Means, which is where Brad sits. And even if you take out the APAC's influence on the Israel-Palestinian question, APAC has been transforming. It is just a conduit for Republican money and election denier money to meddle in Democratic primaries.
That's exactly what they're trying to do in the 9th district now.
Yep.
And
with Bushra they're running ads for Bushra.
Come on. And Bushra is like, no, I don't want those ads.
Yeah, okay? Exactly.
Please don't use my shoulder to point your gun at other people.
I like that. I like that expression. But it's, APAC, as I said, take out the Israel portion of it. They fund election deniers. They are just simply the funnel for Republican dark money to lock out progressives, plain and simple. And anyone who doesn't see that in Congress, Brad Schneider, is a sucker. And they need to understand that they are being played, or they are willing to be played, which is even worse.
Hey, Morgan, the other term for a sucker is a lollipop. Did you know that?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, folks, if you have any questions for our candidates, we got about 6 minutes to go. The number to call in is 773-763-9278. Reed, you had another question, and this time let's bring your question for Richard.
This is for Mr. Boykin. Yes, good morning, Mr. Boykin.
Good morning.
Thank you. Even though Mohammed told you that I'm talking to you from the Vegas area, I am a 25-year former resident of Chicago, still have lots of interest in Will County especially, so I do pay attention to what's happening there. And you have a lot of credentials. You have a lot of qualifications. You're a lawyer. You've served on the Cook County Board of Commissioners. You're a heavy-duty candidate. And so that's why I'm sort of perplexed, and I wanted to ask your take on this. Why, my understanding is that you were chief of staff for outgoing Congressman Danny Davis, correct, and he chose to endorse LaShawn Ford, your opponent in the primary. Would you tell us what you feel makes you a more qualified, more experienced candidate than Mr. Ford, or for that matter, any of the other candidates, that why you should be the one who gets the endorsement?
So thank you for the question. Look, I've done the job. I was Congressman Davis's chief of staff the first 10 years of his 30-year career, arguably the most productive years. We laid the foundation for a successful tenure in Congress. I served on the county board. And when I served on the county board from 2014 to 2018, I angered some of my fellow Democrats because I led the effort to get rid of the sugar tax, which impacted Gatorade, orange juice, apple juice, soda pops, you name it. It was a tax that was a bad tax. It was a regressive tax. And I got rid of the tax on feminine hygiene products. I voted against the sales tax increase in Cook County that made us the highest in the nation. But it's a regressive tax too. I've been arguing that we need to fix the property tax system in Cook County so that thousands of people aren't losing their homes because they can't afford to pay the property taxes. So I've sort of been this guy who's been willing to take on my own party. I haven't been, if you will, compliant with the party. And I'm glad I haven't, because at the end of the day, we need people who are going to speak truth to power. We need people who are going to help to raise people up and communities up. I met two black gentlemen at a bus stop the other day. One was in his 50s. I asked him if he was going to vote and if he could vote for me. He said, "I don't get down with politicians. I'm eligible to vote, but I don't plan on voting." And I tried to convince that gentleman, "Hey, man, I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant. Please go out and vote." Then I met a guy in his 20s, and the guy said, "No, I'm not interested, man. Politics, these people make all these promises. Nothing ever changes." And so when you look on certain communities throughout the West Side and South Side, people are facing Great Depression levels of unemployment. Jobs have gone. Nothing has come in to replace them. People are on the streets selling drugs just to make a living. This is not right. And all of these folks are Democrats. We have to change it. Look, Democrats have to do what we have to do in order to make sure that communities can thrive and that communities are safe and that communities, kids are learning. At the end of the day, look, we got a great achievement gap in Chicago where you have black kids and Latino kids who aren't reading and writing and doing math at grade level, but yet they're graduating. We're setting kids up for failure. So I'm a different kind of cat. I'm a different kind of guy. And I'm somebody who's going to stand up for the people. I put people first. And that's why I put most of my donations have come from me. I put the money in, probably over $300,000 of my own money. But that means I'm going to listen to the people and nobody else is going to call the shots. But at the end of the day, I was born to do the job. I was made to do it. And hopefully the people on March 17th will elect me to do it.
Well, that's so good to hear, Richard. We've got about 2 minutes to go before we go to the top of the hour for the station break and NBC News. But we are live on Facebook also, and this is being recorded. So we'll continue the conversation when the station takes a break. And Mike has a question. Mike, go ahead. What's on your mind?
Well, Richard hit the nail right on the head, and so did Morgan. It's about being a public servant, and that's what sets these two apart. I mean, you could tell. That's why one of the many reasons I love this radio program is people could actually see them and they could hear what they're saying and understand that these people are there for you. They're not there and they're not beholden to special interests. And it just really heartens my soul to hear that, because these people are public servants, and the people out there need to vote for public servants to get this thing back on track.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we started this show also, guys. As you can notice, we don't take advertising on this show, okay? We are self-funding this, and we will be raising some funds as we go along after the elections are over, to kind of like a public radio service, if you like to call it that. The reason why we don't want corporate advertising is the same thing, because then they will tell us what to say and what not to say, and we don't want the party even to tell us what to say, what not to say, because there is a lot of rot in the Democratic Party that needs to be fixed. Let's go to Dr. White. Sheila, you got any questions for our candidates?
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Boykins. Thank you for being here, gentlemen. Mr. Boykins, in your community, in your district, there's layered crises that, like housing instability, healthcare access, and underfunded schools. My question is, what are your plans to protect programs like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid for people that rely on these programs?
Like, I think it's a great question. Look, I said it earlier at the top of the show. We're spending $1 billion a day to fight and wage war in Iran, war that American people in the 7th District or across this country weren't threatened, but yet we waged this war, $1 billion. We've already spent in the leading up days to it, 5.6 billion. And so you can take that money and you can reverse the cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP, and you can fund these programs. And we should be funding these programs. We shouldn't be waging war and losing the treasure and blood of American citizens. It is wrong. The other thing is, in the 7th District, we have the largest life expectancy gap of any major city in West Garfield Park, a 20-year life expectancy gap. Wow. So people who live there, they die 20 years earlier than somebody who lives in Streeterville. It is unconscionable in this country that we have that. And so we have to bring resources to help that community. They have an unemployment crisis on the west side and south sides of Chicago. We've had hundreds of thousands of jobs that have left those communities. Nothing has come in to replace them. So we got to bring jobs, jobs, jobs. We got to make sure that people are getting a quality education in our schools. We have to make sure that those who don't go on to college, they get trades, a certification so that they can go into jobs. We need to partner with the labor unions to make sure that they're hiring people who look like me and who are brown and Latino from those communities so that they can do the work that's needed to be done. We need to make sure that we have a real emphasis on civics, education, history education in our schools. This is a blue state. There's no reason why we can't put a focus on civics so that our people, our young people, understand the importance of civic engagement. Look, most of the folks who are elected, what they want to do is they want to maintain power. And so that means they don't really want people coming out. They want their voters to come out, but not everybody else. And so we need to be open. We need to be transparent about everything that we do. We need to let the people lead, and to be their voice, to be their representative. So we got issues that have been around for decades that I want to solve. The leading cause of death for African-American young men, 15 to 44, is homicide. It's been that way for the last 50 years. We got to resolve it. I mean, we're fighting for some of the same issues that Dr. King fought for. When you think about affordable housing, look, the black home ownership rate has not changed since before the passage of the Fair Housing Act in 1968. It's 43% in Chicago. It has not changed.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, folks, that you have thoughts like that, Richard, which are so important. And especially, Morgan, coming back to you on this, one of the things that I had focused on, that I'd run on when I ran, was term limits. We need to have term limits, and we need to increase the term of Congress from 2 years to at least 4 years. Okay.
Right.
And have 2 4-year terms. When you can have 6 years for the Senate, why can't we have 4 years? 2 years, by the time you get your years wet, you're running again for the next term.
Exactly. And just in my experience with this, last year, 2025, already by May, I was announcing my candidacy. By August, we're collecting signatures, and we have our primary already on Tuesday. It's painfully early. It is just a perma campaign for the House of Representatives. And yeah, you don't have any time to get anything done. But term limits, absolutely. We have way too many people who have served way too long. We had 3 Democrats die in office last year. That shouldn't happen. How many bills could have been defeated if it had just still been alive? It sounds morbid, but just by electing me, I think the House Democratic average age goes down by about 18 months. So we do need term limits, and people shouldn't be making this a career for forever. This is not my dream to do this for the rest of my life. I also have a business.
Absolutely.
I think, that, as we said, they are public servants and should act as such, not as just their retirement plan. I think there was a Republican congressman, I can't remember who it was, said, "What am I going to do if I retire from Congress? I don't have anything else to do." Like, the entitlement of that is just.
I was listening, Morgan. I was listening to a video. I was watching a video of one of the candidates running in the 8th district, and I shared that thought with Mike. So I don't know who scripted that. It was such a silly script. The questioner is asking, "So what do you do for a living, sir?" And he goes, "I'm running for Congress."
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, come on.
He must be doing it different than me, because I don't, you're not supposed to get paid while you're doing it. So,
Yeah. So what do you do for a living, sir? I'm running for Congress. Mike, I sent it out to you, and we both had a good laugh on that. 7 minutes past the hour, folks. And Reed has got a question, and we'll be winding this session up in about 3 to 4 minutes. Reed, go ahead, please.
All right, well, this will be posed to Mr. Coghill again, too. You have said that artificial intelligence is the greatest challenge that we face over the course of the next decade. At least I believe you said that. Would you elaborate on that? What are the challenges and the problems posed by AI?
The issue with AI, and especially in Lake County, they're multifaceted. For instance, there is a data center going in about 3 miles from my house. It's all very opaque. We don't know what the deal is. The 10th congressional district is pretty, let's be honest, it's pretty weird. It goes from the southeast, the North Shore, all the way up to eastern McHenry County. And so it's very diverse in terms of economic needs, viewpoints, etc. But the one thing that unites everybody is from the northwest to the southeast is that we need to rein in data centers, because Lake County has a lot of water. Data centers need a whole lot of it. There's a lot of farmland which is now distressed due to the fact that these farmers can't sell their soybeans to China thanks to our idiotic tariff policy. Therefore, for various reasons, this is a big issue. They're trying to build a pipeline from Antioch into Wisconsin for a Microsoft data center, which is not popular amongst the people who live there. So there's the economic aspect of it. There's the environmental impact, which in Lake County is going to be very large. And there's the jobs aspect. So, what do we have to do? I think we do put a moratorium on data centers, as Senator Sanders stated. And also, there needs to be ironclad guarantees that we taxpayers of Lake County aren't on the hook if the AI bubble goes poof. We should not have to pay for that. And I think everyone is realizing that a lot of the AI industry now is just, it's circular and, what do they call inside sales? NVIDIA buys from Microsoft, it buys from Palantir, et cetera, and the money just goes in a circle and they're increasing valuations. They're not actually doing anything. So the taxpayer needs to be defended from the fallout of an AI bubble bursting. That is the biggest issue that we need to face.
Okay, folks, we got Congresswoman Marie Newman joining us, so I guess we are coming to the end of the session over here. And before I let you two gentlemen go, we talked about artificial intelligence. How about artificial stupidity that we are seeing in our Congress? How do we fix it, man? Okay, I mean, this is self-inflicted wounds that we are having on our psyche by these psychopaths who are in office right now. So Morgan Coghill, Richard Boykin, thank you so much for joining us. Morgan, how do people find out more about you before we let you go?
Go to my website, coghillforcongress.com. Sign up for canvassing, sign up for phone banking. We've got 48 hours left, and we appreciate any help that we can get, whether it's an hour, whether it's 2. We're pedal to the metal up until election day, And again, that's coghillforcongress.com, and we're on all of the social media.
And Richard, how about where people can find more information about you?
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show, and thank you, your distinguished panel as well. Let me just say this. This is a crucial election. We need people to get out and vote. Please vote, 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 because this election is so critical. We got 13 people running, and it could be a close race. Please get out and vote. You can find more information about me by going to richardboykinforcongress.com. Punch 39 if you're so inclined, if you like what you see, what you hear from us. And please send us donations. We need the help. We got 48 hours. We got an important election apparatus on Tuesday that we're going to have folks manning polling stations. But we gotta pay many of those people. If you want to volunteer, please, we need your help. Thank you so much. God bless each and every one of you. And may God bless America.
Thank you both. And folks, if you don't live in the district, we have families and friends who lives in those districts. Pick up the phone, call them. If needed, go by and take them to the polling stations. We all have family and friends all over the state. So don't let it be that, I don't live in the 7th. I don't live in the 10th. Yeah, you have relations in those districts. So please get the vote out. And on that note, thank you so much for joining us early in the morning. I see that you are all dressed up with nowhere to go this morning, but thank you. Thank you for coming on the show with us. Good morning, Murray.
Good morning. I bet you they're dressed up because they have a gazillion events today. So they've already been up a long time and we haven't. So God bless you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
And Richard, again, thank you for your service of working with Dr. Wilson also. That's a great program that you guys are pioneering this year too. You did that last year, and we'll be happy to be a part of that in any way which we can to promote it. Good morning, Marie.
Good morning. Well, it is finally that weekend. The last several days is often known as GOTV and electoral politics, which means get out the vote. And man, people are getting out the vote. I think this is probably the most active electoral cycle I've seen in 20 years. This is really impressive.
Yes.
And I want to start my Ignore at Your Risk segment with a grand compliment for all candidates. I will say that this has been a very particularly rough primary for everybody, and a lot going on. A lot of folks have been just drowned out by money, and it's just a shame. But let's get to it. So we did a little bit of tallying over here and looked at super PACs, and it looks like 18 super PACs have dipped in to Illinois. 18. We know the big ones, Affordable Chicago Women. There's Electing Chicago Women. All of these, kind of euphemistic names for APAC. Fair Shake is the PAC that is the moniker for the folks that do crypto. There's an AI PAC called Think Big. It goes on and on, but there's 18 of them that have dipped in, and it comes to about $35 million. That is dizzying.
And then a primary election.
Yeah, in a primary. That's a good point. And then the second number that's going to blow your hair back is 62 million has been spent all in the Chicago area. So meaning between the super PACs, candidates, and other means, small donors. So 62 million. I'm pretty sure we're going to hit a historical number. They're doing a little bit of tallying up, but it looks like, in fact, we'll hit a historic number. So let's get to the Senate race, right? Public polling in the Democratic primary has varied exact percentages, but the bottom line is a trend. In general, Krishnamurthy tends to be leading the field either by a point or 7 points, depending on the poll. Juliana frequently comes in second, and she's within 5 to 7 points of him generally. And Robin Kelly is a few points behind both of them. But man, has a lot of money gone into that race. So I also will say, interestingly, as of Monday, there was still 15% of the polled voters were still undecided, which is a bit odd. Usually you're getting down to 5 or 10% by that point. So let's talk about the PACs in that race. So Pro Crypto Fair Shake Super PAC is spending about 10 million between supporting Juliana's race and other candidates, and then the combination of the APAC money and APAC donor spending could be as high as 20 to 25 million in that race, and that's just individual APAC donors spending. So let's go head over to Illinois 9. Really tough race too. And I also will say this is a field of really amazing candidates, as is the case in all of these races. But I will say, I'm glad I'm not a voter in Illinois 9 because it would be a hard choice. There's some very talented folks there. Mm-hmm. So looks like the public polling has Mayor Daniel Biss still leading at 24%. Kat Abagzala and Laura Fine are within a point of each other, and then it goes down from there, including folks like Mike Simmons, Bushra Amawala, and a few others, Phil Andrews. So that's a tight race, and we'll see what happens. But the spending, which is kind of the ethos for today, the spending is likely to exceed 13 million, including campaigns, and APAC alone has spent 5 million supporting Laura Fine in that race. So that is wild. That just hasn't happened in our politics to date. Let's scoot over to Illinois 8, give you a quick purview. Crypto's spending a lot of money there, about $1 million to support Melissa Bean. APAC is spending another $4 million in support of frontrunner Melissa Bean. She's leading by 5 to 10 points, depending on the poll. Junaid Ahmed, who's the second in line in the polling, obviously has sworn off APAC, doesn't take APAC money, and has been consistently 5 points behind her. But super PACs are still playing big there, somewhere between 5 and 6 million in Illinois 8. It is wild. So let's go over to Illinois 7. Big field. I think Richard said, are there 16? Did he say?
13 candidates.
Oh my God.
Yep.
That's a lot of folks.
Yep.
Really dilutes things down. Polling shows that Melissa Conyers Evans and LaShawn Ford are the front runners. They're within a point, and Keena Collins is just shortly behind them. But United Democracy Project, which is another euphemism for APAC, is heavily supporting Melissa Conyers Ervin. Yeah. In the 7th Congressional District to the tune of 4.8 million. 4.8 million on Melissa. Wild. Illinois 2. Illinois 2 has another APAC PAC called Affordable Chicago Now, helping Donna Miller. Jesse Jackson in that PAC has an AI PAC that is helping him right around 1.3 million. So super PACs in Illinois 2 are spending about just over 7 million right now in that race. And so the real question is, if we're spending 62 million, folks, not us as in the citizens, but these outside PACs and corporate money, they're spending 62 million. Just think about what we could have used that money. Could pay for healthcare for millions, feed millions of people, and help cure diseases, and on, right? We have a much better climate change effort going on. So think about that when you make your vote today, tomorrow, or on election day on Tuesday. Just think about that. People that take in that money or attract that outside money, they're not your friend. So be careful. But interestingly, and I'm about to introduce our guest who's been on before, state Senate candidate Nick Unijewski. He's a policy expert, has worked on a lot of campaigns, and is running in the state Senate race, Illinois 6, against Sarah Feigenholz. Now, in this race, and it's very germane that we're having him on today, is that a boatload of money has been spent against Nick, and I wanted to get his perspective. So Nick, hello and welcome.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Good. So tell us a little bit about the parties that are getting in. I've heard tale that there's Realtors Association is running ads against you, and then the Democratic Party of Illinois, but I'll let you tell the tale. Go ahead.
Yes, so I am running, my name is Nick Unijewski. I'm a Democrat running for state Senate in the 6th District, which covers most of the north side of Chicago, from Gold Coast, Lincoln Park, Lakeview, all the way through North Center. And what we're seeing now is just this influence of super PAC money, dark money, and even the Democratic Party of Illinois weighing in a primary race to dump money for an incumbent that is out of step, out of touch with the times, and out of step with the district. The Democratic Party has spent nearly $200,000 against me, which is more than any other state candidate by far across Illinois. And it's because we're building something that's completely different for the Democratic Party. We are really investing in our people here. My background's in organizing. I got my start in campaigns when we got rid of a very out-of-step Democrat on the southwest side of the city with Marie. But we also did a lot of work here on the north side. I've been hosting these events called salons over the last now 2 years, small group gatherings, 10 to 15 people at a time, where we get together, talk about things like housing and transit and healthcare together about them, shape policies together. We've hosted over 250 of those. In our campaign for state senate, we've knocked on over 80,000 doors in the last year, which is monumental for me to even still understand. We've done it all. We've got a great team of people. But we're also building a better party, one that does not take corporate money. We are a 100% grassroots campaign. My big focus is about housing. We got to build more housing so people can afford to live here and stay here. We have to fix up our transit, and we have to fight back harder against this federal administration for all that's happening now. It would really behoove everyone in the Democratic Party to understand that the base has shifted so much. They want change. They want leaders that are independent-minded and really grounded in community, not just beholden to whoever writes you the biggest checks.
That sounds familiar.
It sure does.
I hear this from candidates all the time that are kind of new guard candidates instead of, the old guard that's in place right now. And it doesn't mean all incumbents are bad, folks, but clearly when there's an incumbent that keeps on doing things the same old way and getting no effect and not making progress for its community, that's when we have to look at that candidate and go, that elected, and say, maybe there's a better candidate out there. So Nick, all this money being spent, and it's mostly on mailers. Did I hear that correctly?
That is right, because everybody loves political mail.
I know it's a delight, the mountain. I actually am saving a little mountain because I'm thinking I could make a chair out of it. So it's gorgeous. So tell us a little bit about how are they hitting you? I'm always intrigued by the claims that outside campaign expenditures are making against candidates, because it's usually pretty entertaining. So tell us about the claims they're making against you.
Well, one of the fun claims, my background's in organizing. I worked in social services and city government here in Chicago, and I focused on a lot of programs that were things like homelessness, violence prevention, childcare, investing in kids from a very young age, and modernizing them, making sure we're following data and research. All of those policies were in part the reason that crime is down across the city of Chicago. And that's great news.
Great.
They are saying that I am responsible for crime going up, which is just a big fat lie. It has been very well reported and documented that crime is down in Chicago, but how powerful I must be that I am responsible for all of these things. So that's one fun thing. And then it's just another big fat lie that I want to abolish the police. It's back from my organizing days when I worked at Indivisible. During 2020, they cite a video where I talk about voting by mail the entire time. So, when you can't run a race on policy, you resort to lies and distortions and personal attacks. And it's a real shame that our 30-year incumbent senator is resorting to this. Meanwhile, she is refusing to debate me. She refuses to show up at events where she's listed on the agenda, and she refused to be present in the neighborhoods. We are running a totally different race for a different moment in time, and voters, I hope, will decide a different kind of Democrat on Tuesday, 17th.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because it is always curious. And there's two sides to every story, folks, right? But when you're getting inundated with money as a candidate with outside money, it is tricky because you can't respond to everything because you don't have very much money to spend and get your message out. So I'm always interested to see how folks are doing it. I think that Nick's more new guard approach is getting more and more common. I'm hearing a lot of state rep is in the suburbs and the city using that same thing, like really heavying up on the door-to-door contact, meet and greets, salons in the case of Nick, and that they're really working. So Nick, I've heard recently that you were endorsed by the Tribune, and that you felt like there was a turning point recently over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks. What do you think that turning point was with your momentum, all the things?
That's right. I mean, we have been working extremely hard on the ground here. Like I said, we've knocked on 80,000 doors, but the Tribune did endorse me. In our race, I am running against someone who has never had an opponent before, ever. And the real thing they endorsed me for is the housing crisis. We need to build more housing. And to me, it's a number of things we can do at the state level to address it. It's zoning reform. So we can legalize things like coach houses and four flats by right, because we have so many people who want to buy a home, but they can't because that housing just doesn't exist. Or their longtime owners or renters getting priced out, whether it's through ballooning property taxes or a lot of corporate landlords just price gouging rents because they can. So if we do zoning reform, if we modernize our construction codes for things like staircases and elevators, which I've been talking about a lot, sounds like a big yawn for a lot of people. But if we can update those, follow research and data from other states and cities like they've done, then we can get larger units on the market. In Lakeview, we can get like a 3-bedroom where a lot of families want to stay here, but they can't because that housing doesn't exist. And we can create a predictable formula for both property taxes and rising rents to say, all right, fine. If you want to raise them, sure, but let's index it to something predictable like inflation. All things that I care about, that I have the urgency to bring to the moment. And that's what the Tribune appreciated. In organizing and really in my life, I've never been that kind of person that waits around for the Democratic Party to tell me what to do. I'm going to listen to the people, fight alongside them, and get to work. And they like that. And as we talk to the people across our district on the north side of Chicago, people overwhelmingly want a fighter. They want someone who doesn't just show up, who might vote the party line, but someone who's really grounded in the people that we want to serve. And we are feeling that all day long, every day. So the Tribune actually came out with another piece about our race with the influx of money coming in over the weekend now. And we're seeing it in real time. People overwhelmingly want a candidate that is grounded, different kind of Democrat for a different moment in time.
Well, I think that's a great example because I've talked to probably 20 candidates in the last probably 10 weeks about their campaigns. And I will say that I think that we're getting back to a really strong place. A lot of candidates are rooted in the community, and those are the ones that mostly are the most successful ones. Not always with all the money, and definitely not with outside spending. So this is a cautionary tale to the establishment, to corporate PACs, and to APAC, and all of these folks. Like, folks, I got to tell you, it'll be interesting on Tuesday. We'll see. I think there's going to be some backfire. So we'll see. We'll report in next week. Nick, thank you for being with us today. What is your website? How can they learn more about your policies?
Thank you, everybody. My website is nick4illinois.com, all spelled out. You can learn more about me there. You can volunteer in these last couple of days. You can donate. Most importantly, if you live on the north side of Chicago, make sure you get out and vote by Tuesday the 17th.
Indeed. Thank you for coming.
Right,
well,
thanks,
thank
everybody.
you, Nick, for joining us. And folks, again, something important that Marie brought out just now is we are getting a lot of good candidates this time around in the primary.
So good.
And most of them are grounded in the districts that they want to represent. And Marie, talking about grounding, Bushra Amiwala is so well grounded in the 9th district.
Yeah.
I have not endorsed personally any candidate except for Bushra.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's 2 of us.
She is
Three of
the
us.
future.
3 of us.
Oh, yay. I didn't know Maria.
Hey, Maria joining us. Maria,
Three of
Maria
us.
did an amazing video with Bushra. I did enjoy that quite a bit. So thank you.
Yep. And
Yeah.
honestly, I mean, those kind of candidates are the future of our community, the future of our party. Okay. Not somebody who is coming in as a carpetbagger from somewhere else just before the elections. I don't know what's the backstory on that. I would love to know why this person chose the 9th district of all to come and claim to represent the people. Okay. I don't care about the poll numbers. Poll numbers can be manipulated. Poll numbers can be who you're asking. And most people with some kind of media savvy can claim to be someone that they are not. Okay. So let's come back to Maria. Thank you so much for joining us. What is on your mind? Which echo chamber do you want to break? My rant today was on this euphemism that our leadership is using about boots on the ground. Those boots have bodies attached to them, folks. Those boots have families attached to them. And when they start coming back, they come back in body bags not boot boxes. And none of our leaders, I'll guarantee you, have any of their family in those boots that are being, sent overseas to fight another country's war for us.
So I'm going to split the section, my section in two parts. I'm going to start off with the conversation about the polls, though, because Marie, I think this is an important thing to unpack, and especially for Illinois 9. Mohammed, I think perhaps you do know, I did publicly endorse Bushra, and I endorsed her quite a bit ago. And I endorsed her because I believed she was within the district. She has a proven track record, and she's built policy and she's passed policy. She's elected. She had votes that actually a number in her last election were higher than the turnout for Daniel Biss's votes. So, just as a candidate profile, and I just wanted to kind of dig into here, Marie, about how we interpret polls and how we interpret what we want for the community. So we do want candidates that are grounded in the community for short-term and long-term reasons, because they're looking after the community, or they have been looking after the community. And I think that do you feel, and that's why I wanted to kind of ask this question and expound it more, do you feel that there's different ways to look at the polls, right? So let's take Illinois 9 for an example. When you look at the polls, Bushra is not polling very high at all. She's like way outside Biss and Abu Ghazala. And so when you look at someone that has been in the district, when you're knocking on doors, the community clearly recognizes her, very strong candidate. How do you think the campaign itself is interpreting the polls, right? Because unfortunately, what I have seen in the last 24 hours is that there has been a big push for Bushra Amiwala to drop out because of the poll numbers specifically. And she's refusing to drop out. I don't know what her actual position, she hasn't released one, I don't think, of why she's not dropping out. But obviously because she cares about the position, and she feels like she has a chance. But the pressure to pull out because of the low poll numbers, how should a candidate, this is for anyone else who's interested in running, and they're not polling high, but what they're hearing on the ground is so different from the polls, how should a candidate interpret that? And how should people who are supporting a candidate that has low polling numbers, but the candidate is stellar, how should they interpret that? What do you think?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. And thank you for this discussion, because this is what people don't understand. So remember, so think of your campaign committee like the economy. There are a bunch of indicators about the health of the campaign or the health of the economy. So the polling numbers typically are like a CPI. It's a snapshot of a basket of goods, right? So it's a snapshot of a group of voters, right? So what we're not accounting for, and I'll tell you why I feel so strongly, in 2024, the reason that Trump won is that he attracted all of these new voters that had never voted before or voted highly sporadically, and nobody polled them. Nobody polled them. So that's why there was this huge drift, right? And then people stayed home too, obviously. So in the Illinois 9, I think there's a huge number of new voters that have not been polled. And the reason I believe that is that Illinois 9 is almost entirely it has some Lake County, but it's mostly Cook County. Cook County, as of Monday, voted to the tune of 107,000 voters. Usually at that point, there's only about 30 to 40,000. So 3 times as many voters. So that tells me that people are planning to vote. They're new voters. There's lots of good news in there. And that also tells me we're going to have a robust primary. So I'm thrilled about that.
Yeah,
but it really comes down to, I don't think these pollsters can poll new voters. We've seen it for 2 years now, every single time. Even in all these special elections that Democrats have won, there's like 1/3 of the electorate nobody can account for because they didn't vote before. So here's what I will say as a candidate. If I were in that race, I would say it is a bit of a crapshoot, but also any of the folks that are polling, whether it is Bushra, Mike Simmons, or whoever, may have an enormously good happy surprise on election day. And we'll see.
Mhm.
So I think that as a candidate, polls are one of many items. There's field data. I know
Yeah.
Bushra's field data looks very good. Everybody, her name ID is sky high.
Mhm.
And she has a lot of people voting for that have identified she's going to. So, we'll see what happens in that race. I'm on pins and needles about it.
Yeah, I'm on pins and needles too, and I feel like the echo chamber we're breaking here is people that are pro polls, let's just focus on the polls, and people that are saying let's focus on the candidate and recognize that this candidate is solid but is not responding to the polls the way you are. She is or he is seeing something on the ground. The team is seeing something on the ground that makes it very difficult for this candidate to be convinced that this polling is accurate. And now some people would argue, oh, this is all ego talking when there's a candidate that's low in the polls. But as we're discussing here, it's much more complicated than that. It's much more complicated than that. I think that also candidates have a responsibility. They have a responsibility for the investment that's been put in them to make sure that this is a unwinnable situation beyond just the polls. And so the other question is about the strategy, and it's interesting, and this is another way to break the echo chamber, is what does media presence mean versus field? Because a lot of these candidates don't have money to buy ads or do strong media, but their field is strong because it's run on volunteers, right? And so how does a candidate survive and what motivates them? And it seems to me it's because their field response is strong. So if you look at candidates who don't have media across the board and you see them moving and you see them continuing to go and you ask them, they say, we're hearing really good things. It's going really, really well. And they're not deluding anybody. It's just that there's a disconnect between the media and the field. So nothing beats in community, in district relationships, because those relationships motivate people to come out. Now, if it does not go the way it's supposed to go for a person that's polling low, the question would be, has the power of having presence in media impacted the ability for constituents to recognize who's strong on policy? And I think that is a very important education piece for us as we continue to see these races and more. Are we doing the best that we can to educate constituents about policy versus just sound bites on media? Because at the end of the day, that's what they're voting for. They're not voting for sound bites. They're voting for, how is this going to play out in my everyday life? Are the teachers going to be paid more? Are we going to be protecting SNAP? All of these different issues. And these are nuanced things that only happen on the ground during field in Q&As when you're talking to people. So interesting. So I just wanted to break this because I know for that race, the polling is the huge, huge issue. And people are kind of split between, and everyone's trying to figure out the best way to move forward and who they're supporting. Okay, going back to what Mohammed said in your monologue. So I think what is very, very interesting is for us to see the parallels here between the strategy and the media narratives and the public dialogue that we use to be able to galvanize people to agree to going to war. I think that one thing that President Trump had said when he was questioned about Iran, he said, they're horrible people. They chop heads off babies and they cut women in half. This is what was stated. And it was surprisingly similar to the narrative we heard that later got debunked about Palestinians beheading babies. It was exactly the same, which obviously led to much violence and then also led to Wadea al-Fayoumi's death, because that is what triggered his murderer. And it turned out to be a false statement. So I guess the similarity we see right now is that the use of dehumanization and false narratives to galvanize a population. But I agree with you, Mohammed, that the population is not being galvanized. That's what I find very, very interesting with the amount of discussions that we're talking about with Iran is it's not a concept of, when we talk about this a lot, it's not a concept of who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. First, we start off with, let's see how this how this war escalated and how it started, and we talked about this last time, is that we have to use a humanizing lens to decide if U.S. foreign policy is pro-humanity or not, and if it's pro-expansion at the expense of humanity or not. And the first incident, which we talked about last time, which got confirmed this time, is the bombing of that girls' school. And the bombing of the girls' school turned out to be at the fault of, the U.S. government error. Some people say it was deliberate. Some people say it's an error. And to minimize that, and then to try to galvanize and convince a people that we are going to move forward and that we are not in error as we move forward to this campaign, I don't think it's going to be successful to convince people, because I think people are recognizing that you cannot consistently dehumanize and create false narratives. I think the question is, and this is what we have to break the echo chamber on, how do you respond? How do we respond as people just watching this happen? Let's say you don't have family members that are going into the military or are in the military, okay? But you're watching this happen. What should your call to action be? And it seems to me your call to action should be, is there truth to the reality of what we are hearing about the strategies on the ground and in the airspace on an offensive strike? Because if we don't have that information, or if we don't have an understanding of that, we are going to consistently be only basing our actions of approval based on false narratives that have been proven to be false already. So how do we respond to that? And I think shows like this that, Mohammed opened this up and discuss how important it is for the voter to be very clearly in tune to how you sell war or how you sell offensive attacks is critical, is very critical, because we are going to have to use that muscle, cognitive muscle, to understand whether moving forward is going to be something that's going to serve Americans, and not only serve Americans, but serve the region around us. I will say I had a conversation on my podcast, and the title of that conversation was with Caroline Rose, who's a foreign policy analyst at New Lines Institute, and the title of the conversation was "Illicit Trade and Dehumanization: U.S. Foreign Policy in the Middle East." We have to recognize that we have used dehumanization as a partner, as a tool to implement foreign policy in the Middle East. And so why say statements like this? Why say statements like they're horrible people, they cut bodies in half, and then they cut kids' heads off? Why aren't we just talking about strategic moves? Why aren't we talking about what the assets would be if we actually did this? Right? Instead, our focus is on making sure that we create an image of a people that is so evil that we need to attack. So I think we should comfortably break the echo chamber and say this very clearly, that we have used the strategy of dehumanization to galvanize people, to convince people that we are in the right, to convince people of offensive strikes, preemptive strikes. And is dehumanization a strategy that we should employ when our sons and daughters could be losing their lives? Mohammed, I saw you nodding.
Maria, thank you so much for those thoughts, and especially again coming back to our initial discussion about the ninth district. I want to just emphasize again that polling is not driving the voting. Okay, so most of the people who get polled, they don't even go out to vote. And on that note, I'd like to bring in Judge John Pavich. He's been patiently waiting to join the conversation. John, good morning.
Good morning, Mohammed. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I know that we have got 1 day, 2 days left, and you look tired. Okay.
I am tired. That is
okay.
a very factual observation.
So Maria and Marie and the rest of the team, Judge Pavich is running for the Illinois 3rd Appellate District in the primary, and he does have a primary opponent. And the primary opponent is going about with some negative advertising. And I started the show today listening to some ads on WCPT for a congressional candidate. And it is to me, negative advertising means I'm not going to vote for you, period. Okay. Talk about yourself and talk about your credentials. And coming to credentials, Judge Pavich, you have been endorsed by the ISBA, which is the Illinois State Bar Association, right? So, and your opponent has not been endorsed. So let me just point that out, right?
Well, there's a slight difference there, Mohammed. The Bar Association doesn't so much as endorse as they provide rankings.
Right,
and
the rankings.
I did receive the highest ranking
I'm
of
glad
highly
you cleared that up. That's why you are a judge and I'm not.
Okay. Very few people understand how that works. Just lawyers and
Okay.
judges. We keep it
So
somewhat.
Maria is an attorney, by the way. So I mean, she can correct me if I go wrong too. So not a problem. But yeah, what do they look at when they issue these rankings, John? What are they looking at? What are they ranking you on? Because these are your peers ranking you, right?
That is correct. Yes, and it's actually a two-step process. So to back up just a little bit, for those individuals that are running for the circuit court, which is the trial court, it is the Bar Association does a poll of attorneys and judges that know the individual, have seen them in a courtroom setting. And so that's a poll. And some of the areas that they poll on are impartiality, legal knowledge, temperament, courtroom management. They ask about health, things of this nature. And it's a simple up or down, recommended or not recommended vote of your peers. And so that's something that circuit court judges, as well as appellate court candidates and Supreme Court candidates, go through. And so I did receive the highest of those bar poll ratings of any of the four people running in the race. And then for the appellate court, it's a further step. It's a very, I thought it was a very rigorous investigation that the ISBA does into candidates for the appellate court, and that includes the candidates have to fill out a 15-page questionnaire. Sitting judges have to fill out an additional 10-page supplemental questionnaire.
Wow.
Then there is the Bar Association will assign an investigator to go and speak with essentially every attorney that has had a jury or a bench trial in front of the judge, has had a contested motion practice in front of the judge. And so they'll speak with all of those attorneys, and then they'll find additional attorneys based on those conversations to go and speak with. And then finally, there is it's about a 45-minute to an hour-long interview with a panel of, I believe there were 10 attorneys on the panel. And that completes the investigation. So it's a rigorous process.
Wow.
It took a while. So it was I was quite humbled and pleased to receive the highest rating, because it's a rare rating that they give out, highly recommended.
So John, why don't we use the same criteria to elect our president, man? That's okay. Okay. But
if you're talking about temperament, impartiality, management skills, I don't know that his numbers would be that high.
Yeah, I know. Let me tell you a little story, okay? A couple of weeks back, I went to the DuPage County Courthouse to actually sit in on a trial and see how the judge's temperament, like what you were saying, right? So when you go to the DuPage County Courthouse, you're not allowed to bring in your cell phones or anything like that with the camera on it, except if you're an attorney, you are allowed to do that. So I'm sitting in that courtroom watching this judge to see how the judge is behaving, right? I'm sitting right behind the prosecutor. I did not have a dog in the race, so I just wanted to see how this judge does that. So the judge looks over after a few minutes, and there was a guy sitting like behind me. The judge looks over and says, "Sir, is that a cell phone in your hand?" Okay. I mean, like she was about to fly off the bench and catch that guy. And the guy says, "Yes, Your Honor, I'm allowed to carry it. I'm an attorney."
That's right. Attorneys are allowed. That's true.
So Murray, just that scene has replayed in my mind so many times. And I sat in a courtroom with also Judge Amy Christensen in Will County, for example. I went to see how she does. Man, that woman has the patience of a saint.
She's great. Yeah.
And I am
she's wonderful.
Sitting there wondering, how can you sit and listen to all of this? I was actually nodding off. Okay. So most people, folks, don't realize that judges are our first line of defense for our civil rights in this country. And unfortunately, they are listed last on a ballot. And most people don't know about judges because you're not really advertising as much as the other people are. And you're not pulling in as much money as the other candidates are to really let people know who you are. That is sad. And that's why we want to have sessions like this to where you can come in and educate our listeners. So, John, what have you done in your career so far as a judge? Why should people elect you to the appellate court?
Well, so first of all, I'm now into my 7th year on the bench at the trial court level. And I think that's important. Being a judge at the trial court level is not required to run for or be elected to the appellate court. But I do think it's an advantage because I think it's important for the reviewing court, which is the appellate court, to have a very good understanding of what the trial court judges are doing and what they're going through. And so the 7 years that I've been an associate circuit in Will County, I've been in a variety of different courtrooms, presided over a variety of different courtrooms and calls. I was on the guardianship call, the juvenile abuse and neglect, the juvenile delinquency, the adoption call. I've presided now over a criminal misdemeanor call for 2 years. So it's a variety of courtrooms that I've been in. And that's also important on the appellate court because appellate court judges have to review all sorts of cases, family law, criminal, civil. So it's important to have that breadth of experience at the appellate court level so that you're not jumping into things for the first time with no understanding of the law. Before becoming a judge, I did practice law for about 14 years. And the focus of my practice was international human rights litigation. And our firm was a small firm. We were able to team up with some other larger firms around the country, and we were able to bring cases on behalf of victims of international human rights violations, war crimes, that sorts of thing. That has become much more difficult now because the U.S. Supreme Court has greatly limited the number of claims that can be brought on behalf of foreign nationals for crimes committed overseas. But during my practice, it was much more flexible. It was much easier to bring cases under those specific statutes. Unfortunately, that's no longer the case. And then before private practice, immediately after law school, I did spend a couple of years in the Central Intelligence Agency, and I was assigned to a group that worked primarily in the Balkans, but through those assignments, I also did work in the former Soviet bloc as well as the Middle East. And that experience, along with the international human rights litigation, really did shape my view of the world and my understanding of the importance of the rule of law. Because as you can probably imagine, I've spent time in some countries where the rule of law was either weak or non-existent. And I don't know that we always appreciate what we have in this country. I know I certainly didn't before traveling and working in those parts of the world. What we have is so extremely special in the rule of law, the idea that everyone is equal before the law, everyone should be granted equal opportunity to be heard in the courts, equal access to justice. And these are fundamental parts of the American legal system. And
well, I think Maria may have a question for you on that because that is one of her specialties is human rights and human rights violations. Maria, you got anything that you want to jump into the conversation?
What jumped out? Well, what jumped out at me, I actually wanted you to expound on your time with the CIA. And how I know that you're saying that being in the different parts of the world opened you up to the benefit of having rule of law compared to other countries where they were not implemented as effectively. But beyond that, how did the experience of the legal parameters of the CIA kind of paint how you position yourself in the rule of law. Like there's so many misconceptions, perhaps it seems to me, because your position specifically about the fact that you brought in claims on behalf of foreign nationals for crimes of war. I'm just wondering, like, a lot of people may not understand how you can merge those two lives, but you have merged those two lives. How would you summarize that in a statement? How it affects your candidacy? Go ahead.
Great question, and I will say it is a very interesting contrast. I will acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And when I made the decision to join the agency, it was my third year of law school is when the September 11th attacks occurred. And my wife and we actually lost a friend in the World Trade Center, for a college friend. And so that led me to think, well, what can I do? What can I do to try to give back, to try to protect those that I love? And so I did join, and I joined at that time. And at that time, as you all are aware, there were a lot of discussions internally and externally about how far that organization could go. And ultimately, after my wife and I had our first son, I was not, how to say it, pleased with the direction things were going at the executive branch, which of course includes the agency. And so that's one of the reasons that I left. And certainly seeing some of the things that I saw got me interested in trying to find a way to pursue claims of international law violations. And again, at the time, there were two statutes that sort of allowed for that, the Alien Torts Statute and the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. And so we really sort of developed a niche practice, and we're successful on occasions, unsuccessful on others, but it was rewarding.
Well, it's just fascinating. Thank you for asking that question, because post 9/11, what law school were you at, Mr. Pavich?
Loyola Chicago.
Okay, because post 9/11 was a really good example of the disruption of the rule of law in our country based on civil liberties, civil rights, acts of privacy, obviously. And so for you to explain that you saw the implementation of these programs and the expansion of that, then you understood even more the value of the rule of law, and that impacts you. And I just think explaining that is so critical, because it kind of empowered you versus tainted your expression of just, it kind of expanded your view of how important rule of law is, that you're able to leave and then contribute in a different way. And I think that's going to affect the way that you will live out your term, that you will not be pressured based on your environment, but you will step in and cross the line when you think it is against the fundamental rules of law in our country, like you did after 9/11 and leaving the CIA for that time.
We got about 1 minute to finish off on WCPT, folks, but we are live on Facebook. And if you would like to stay on beyond WCPT on live on Facebook for a few minutes, you're more than welcome. I mean, I like this conversation because there's a lot of misconception about, he was in the CIA. Yeah, but he went out of the CIA to challenge some of the misconceptions of the policies of the agency. And folks, we are talking with Judge John Pavich. He is running for Appellate Court in the 3rd District of Illinois. Marie, you have any questions, any thoughts that you would want John to respond to?
No, I just thank him for running, and I think and thank you for being a judge. It is a very hard job, folks. Look, they are our last defense, and so be supportive of these races. Help them out if there are volunteer opportunities and all the things, because I'm just going to tell you, had we not had measured folks in those roles, in the robes, as they say, this country would already be gone. I'm just being very clear.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is a very tough job. Most people don't realize that, Maria, but when you go sit in a courtroom and every decision that they make has the chance of being challenged, and you have to be a saint to be a judge. Okay, so let me
Well,
say that right away. Yeah.
I think one thing that we want to also have the chance to discuss here, and I'm so glad that John Pavich is here to say this. How do you feel about political pressure on judges? What are your sentiments on political pressure on judges?
Well, fortunately, at the state level, it hasn't really, it hasn't been as I don't think it's occurring at such a level as you're seeing at the federal level. I don't actually think it's happening at the state level that much. There's not pressure from the executive, not pressure from the legislative branch on judges. Obviously, people in the community are going to complain, they're going to criticize, they're going to even at times threaten. But at the federal level, I think it's incredibly dangerous. I think the pressure that is put on by some very powerful people, especially the president, on the district court judges, the appellate court judges, and the Supreme Court judges, I think it begins to erode the necessary separation between the branches and improperly attempts to influence the decisions of the judges, who are supposed to be, and usually are, impartial, dedicated, and committed to following the law and following where the law should take them. And any attempts to try to improperly influence that and that process undermines the entire legal system.
John, one of the questions that I had for the other candidates who are running for judge also is your judicial philosophy as far as sentencing is concerned, especially when you're looking at young people in their teens and 20s who have not really fully developed their brains. They are being sentenced to 30, 40 years in prison for something stupid that they did. Okay, or they may have done something horrible, okay. But when they come out after 30, 40 years with no chance for parole, they are going to be a burden on society for the rest of their life. And I've written a Substack on this topic also. And the cost to us as taxpayers in the IDOC system, Illinois Department of Corrections, is roughly about $50,000 per year per person. So if somebody is going to be in prison for 40, 50 years, okay, just think about it. How much money are we spending? And is that restorative justice? So what is your philosophy on something like that, especially for young offenders?
That's a great question. And in my current call and my previous calls, I haven't really been in a position where I had to, with a couple of exceptions, impose significant sentences. But my personal feeling is everything's dependent upon the circumstances, of course. But we should always consider the lower end of the sentencing range. We should always consider that as a possibility. If there are factors that suggest a longer, lengthier sentence is appropriate, fine. The prosecutor can make that argument. But the purpose of our system of justice is not necessarily to punish; it is to rehabilitate.
Right.
And are some people beyond the possibility of rehabilitation? I don't know. I suppose it's possible, but I think most are not. And I think judges should keep that in mind.
Yeah, because see, the problem is that prosecutors go in for the maximum possible sentence. It's a notch on their gun. It's like car salesmen. That's what I like to say. How many cars have you sold this week? Oh, I got 5 people, the maximum sentence. Yeah. That somehow, how does one change that? And that's part of the legislature's prerogative, right? To change sentencing guidelines?
Certainly, yes. Those are developed at the legislative level. So your state reps, your state senators, but the state's attorneys are also elected positions. And when the state's attorney candidates are running, then they should be asked those questions. What are your positions? What are your policies? How would you address this? And if the voters are displeased with the performance or with the answers to those questions, then they do have recourse, and that's to vote for somebody else. But state's attorneys are, except maybe in Cook County, I think in some of the outer counties and the rest of the state, they're not always as highly publicized elections, and people don't necessarily know as much about the candidates, kind of like judicial candidates.
Well, let's see if the panel has any questions for you. Let's start with Reed, and we'll finish off after these things. I know that you have a lot of things to do today. It's like 2 days before the finals. Reed, you got any questions for Judge Pavich?
Something that I've always found intriguing about judicial philosophy, being an attorney myself and then a law enforcement officer myself, is whether or not judges, or for that matter, state prosecutors, should be elected or whether they should be appointed. And I'm just curious from other people who are in the law profession, what their philosophies are. Elections versus appointments, terms as opposed to lifetime positions. Do we have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. And that's a really tricky question. I've thought a lot about that, certainly over the last year that I've been a candidate in this election. So as an associate circuit, I was appointed. I went through essentially an application process, and the circuit judges appointed me as an associate circuit. So that was not an election. So this is the first time I'm running as a judicial candidate. I have run previously for the United States Congress, but this is the first time I've run as a judicial candidate. And I think that both methods have advantages and disadvantages. I think the advantage of running in an election is that the voters get to know you. Well, they have an opportunity, if they wish, to learn more about the people that are going to be in these very important positions. The odds are that you're a judge sitting in a traffic court or family court is going to impact somebody's life more than somebody we send to the United States Senate. It's just a fact. You're more likely to see a traffic court judge than you are your U.S. senator. So they are important positions. They do impact your day-to-day life. So in that sense, I think it does make some sense to have elections. But on the other hand, we're supposed to be neutral. We're supposed to be removed somewhat from the process. And elections are inherently messy. They're very rarely clean, as I'm finding out now. And that's just the nature of politics. And so I look at the way judges are appointed at the federal level, and I think, well, that does have some benefits as well. It's not technically a political process, but let's not kid ourselves. It is a political process, and it seems to be becoming more and more so. And the lifetime appointments, I think, I'm not a fan of lifetime appointments for anything.
Thank you.
That is so refreshing. Chris, you got any questions for Judge Pavich?
Yes. Something came to me when you were talking about more on the rehabilitation side versus so many other judges going for the harshest penalties. In your experience, what percentage of judges are more humane and more towards the rehabilitation side versus the almost retaliation type of the harsher punishments?
So as an attorney, I was certainly in front of both types of judges. And
right.
I thought my experience as an attorney was probably about 50-50.
Okay.
That's just a guess. But I certainly was in front of both types of judges. As a judge now at the state court level in Will County, I think most of our judges are very good judges, and I think all of them, almost all of them, really do put in the work to try to understand the full picture. And that's true for our felony judges, our misdemeanor judges, our family court judges, civil judges. We really do have a great group of judges in Will County. Statewide, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where that split is. I like to think it's closer to try to be more humane, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, John, for spending time with us this Sunday morning. I know that you have got other things to take care of and go, and a few more doors to knock today. It's going to be rainy, and at least it's going to be a little bit warm. And also do come back once you go through the primary, and it's on to the November elections, and you always have a place over here on the Lightning Strike on WCPT over here. Thank you so much for joining, folks. It is about 10 minutes past 10 o'clock, so we continued the show live on Facebook, and you're welcome to go back to our website. We will be posting these discussions on our website, tlsradio.com, for the Lightning Strike Radio. by tomorrow. It'll also be on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, which is again at TLS Radio for both of those things. And we will probably take some clips out of these discussions so that you don't have to listen to the whole 2-hour show. And it's, you got better things to do. Thank you, Murray, for joining us. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Sue Petino, for joining us today. Okay.
Welcome.
Okay,
Thank
folks.
you.
I'm your host, Mohammed Fahim, signing off on the Lightning Strike. We'll see you next Sunday with the results of the elections, and I will be reporting live on the election day for WCPT from Will County. So do tune into WCPT 8:20 a.m. on election day to listen to all the updates on who is winning and who is not winning and who is going to be representing us in November. Thank you all.
Everybody.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.